Tonight on GamePoints, Starfield already has a whole bunch of controversies going around, and the goddamn game isn't even out yet. And Bioware is going through some blues right now as it lays off a bunch of people. All that and more in just a moment. Of course, this is an audience interactive podcast, so if you're watching here at Twitch TV/GamePoints or at YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, whatever, feel free to join the conversation. Let's go ahead and move right into the very first topic of the night here. This is via IGN. The link to this and all the stories we're going to talk about will be posted down below or over at our Discord server. Headline: Starfield leaker arrested after stealing and allegedly trying to sell copies of Bethesda's RPG. That's right. We all know who we're talking about here. This man here who said, "No offense, but your game's good." Yeah, he got caught by the cops. Keep in mind, he wasn't necessarily arrested for leaking Starfield, by the way. That's not what the cops came after him for. They came after him because he stole a bunch of copies, allegedly, and was trying to resell them. Let's go ahead and go to the article itself here. The man who leaked the first 40 minutes or so of Bethesda's highly anticipated RPG, Starfield, was arrested, not for leaking spoilers, but because of the theft of the game. 29-year-old Darren Harris was booked yesterday, or when the article was written, in Shelby County, Tennessee, on felony charge of theft of property consisting of between $2,500 and $10,000, a misdemeanor charge of theft of property for $1,000 or less, and another misdemeanor charge of possession of marijuana, per information of the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. IGN has obtained the incident report of the arrest, which lists the stolen property as video game Microsoft Starfield unreleased game. Yeah, that's a problem. You can't go around stealing between $2,500 and $10,000 worth of shit. The marijuana charge is, in my opinion, bullshit. They usually throw that stuff on to bootstrap onto an arrest warrant so they can try to hit you as much as they can. That's typical bullshit. But stealing a whole bunch of money, essentially, and then trying to resell it on eBay, or in this case, I think it was Mercari. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. Stealing a whole bunch of shit and trying to resell it, yeah, that's a problem. You can't really do that, nor do I encourage any of you to do that. And if you do it, don't post about it online. And especially when you go viral and everyone sees this clip and people go, "Oh, well, I wonder where you got those copies from." Back to the article itself. Here we go. Harris took things further. Yes. Where were we? Where were we? I've already done lost where we're at. Here we go. Harris took things further when he began selling copies of Starfield, including the $300 Constellation Edition on Mercari, where it's unclear how Harris obtained the copies or if Microsoft tipped off Shelby County Police about his conduct. He certainly made a little secret of his possession of the game. God damn, I swear I can talk. I just can't tonight. And that is the problem. He bragged about it. He bragged about it and got caught. Now, this man might become a meme. He could be around for a long time. Hey there, Lord Crush. What a dumb move on his part. It's like writing down your crimes. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't get when people will videotape themselves committing the crime and then post that crime to social media. And we've seen this all the way up with like murder, by the way. There's more than a few cases where someone unalived a person, because I gotta be YouTube friendly, and then they upload the footage of them talking about them doing it to TikTok. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing? However, it might be a small price to pay for infamy or fame, depending on how you look at it. By the way, there are some sites going around saying he faces up to 12 years in jail. I highly doubt he is going to face that long, but he is probably going to do some big boy time. He's probably going to go away for a couple years because that is a insignificant amount of copies that he not only stole, allegedly, let's keep that in mind, allegedly stole, but was also reselling. And that does add an extra level of bullshit on top of everything else. By the way, good to have you, Lord Crush. Good to have you in chat. So that's just one of the many Starfield controversies floating around, or stories, I should say. We're not even at the point where the reviews have dropped yet, let alone the game being out. But now that we're on the topic of reviews, we're going to go ahead and move here to Eurogamer. Eurogamer, that site I use a lot for resources. Tend to put them up here for quite a bit so you can take a look at the stories here. Well, it seems like they didn't get a copy of the game for review, at least when the original blog post hit. Go ahead and show right now they did update that an hour after this blog post hit that they ended up getting a review copy. But there were some particulars to this that I found somewhat interesting that I want to get into. To the article from Eurogamer itself. Access to the game appears to have been heavily restricted in the UK, where Bethesda has also not provided copies of Starfield to other websites and YouTube channels owned by Eurogamer parent company ReedPop. Meanwhile, some other UK outlets have been provided access to Bethesda's US arm. So there's definitely seeming to be a left hand not talking to the right situation going on here, where the Euro version of Bethesda's PR wasn't handing out codes, so places like Eurogamer would reach out to the American PR team, and they were getting codes then from that way. Someone's clearly not in the loop there. Kind of a little bit of interesting peel behind the curtain to take a look at what the hell's going on at the clown show that is Bethesda. Moving on. I, the writer of the article, have been told that Eurogamer will receive a copy at some point, but even if it happens today, we are now well past the point of being able to appraise such an enormous RPG at the same time as other outlets this week. As I said, they did get that copy in not even an hour after they wrote this blog post. Ultimately, delaying Eurogamer's access to Starfield means a delay to you reading our verdict. It also means our score will join the industry's critical consensus at a later point after the outlets were initially picked by Bethesda. Rest assured, however, that Eurogamer's Starfield review will be published as soon as we're able, once we can give important release the playtime it fully deserves. This is where it gets very interesting. Lastly, a note on Digital Foundry. You should expect to see relatively prompt coverage of the game by Rich and his team after a separate delivery of Starfield code was provided to them. However, this was provided alongside instruction to me by Bethesda that no other parts of Eurogamer were granted access. This was an unprecedented request, but one I ultimately felt compelled to honor to ensure access granted to Digital Foundry was not sequentially impacted by the other mandate. I have a couple thoughts on this. One, taking online and whining about not getting review code, congratulations, you're also now in the same club as many other people are. This isn't new from Bethesda, by the way. Bethesda has been withholding video game code for many of their games for quite a long time at this point, so you're not really special in that regard. You're just a little bit upset because you are a bigger boy, but honestly, print media is dying. There's a reason why Digital Foundry got a code and you didn't. Digital Foundry gets more eyes. Digital Foundry is a video series. This is an article. People are far more interested in taking into Digital Foundry than they are reading an article like I am doing right now. That's the long and the short of it. Also, you know what? Bethesda's notorious for having blacklists as well, too. Not because they're afraid of the quality of the game, but because someone's wronged them in the past. Stephen Totilo, previously of Kotaku, blacklisted by Bethesda. I think Kotaku, as an outlet in general, completely blacklisted by Bethesda. You piss them off, they cut off your access. Which is why, Eurogamer, when they didn't give you the review code to begin with, you should have just stood up and said, you know what? We don't want it. We'll buy the copy of our own. We'll sever all connection to PR from you, and we'll do a review when it comes out along with everyone else who's playing it. This is why access journalism sucks. Because even if everything is on the up and up, there's always that shadow of doubt on how sincere you're being, because if you piss off the wrong people, you get cut off. I'm not necessarily blaming Eurogamer or even Bethesda here. Bethesda has no obligation to hand out code to anyone, and Eurogamer has no obligation to play by PR's rules. But this is why you need to have that wall between your outlet and PR, and many, many companies don't do this. I think Eurogamer's smartest move would have been, we are refusing the review code, because they've already said they can't have the review ready to go. They should have come out and said, we're refusing the review code, and we will have our unbiased, honest review when the game drops. And they could have generated buzz around that. And honestly, if you do good work, people will come see your review weeks or even months after the game's dropped. People are going to be watching Digital Foundry content on Starfield for many, many weeks, even if it didn't come out day one. Because Digital Foundry has that level of gravitas about them. People love Digital Foundry. You could have taken this time to say, you know what? We don't need it. But instead, you took to the internet to whine and bitch about not getting review code. Boo fucking who. And you end up getting it an hour after this dropped. Now, you could have gotten that because of the response to this, because this did start to get shared kind of frequently in the games media circles on X. But honestly, I look at this and I just see someone whining. Adapt. Access is going to get cut off more and more and more as companies realize they don't need the middleman of game journalists anymore. Why give code out to people early if they're going to potentially savage their game when they can just hand it to a couple of influencers who don't have those alleged ethics and can just say whatever that Bethesda tells them to say? Or even more than likely, what they'll do is they'll just hold a direct of some kind and show you what they want you to see verbatim. To any games media outlet out there, you need to start becoming more independent and not rely on access. It's not to say that you can't take early access code. That is not to say that you can't be invited to preview events. That is not to say you can't use what access you do have when you have it. But if you're running up against a brick wall like Eurogamer clearly was here, then take a goddamn stand and say, we don't need it. And if you're talented enough, people will still read your review. And if they don't come to read your review because your personality suck or because you just bring nothing to the table worth a damn, you need to rethink your business model. Or become like me and just do it as a hobby with no actual expectation of going anywhere. That's the problem with a lot of this legacy games media stuff. That they are dying out and they just refuse to fucking adapt. And it's really starting to like, I hear these complaints about losing access, and the only thing I have to say is boo fucking who. Many giant names out there didn't have a single lick of access, and they were doing just fine. Join them. Don't necessarily, I'm not saying that you can't flame Bethesda like you did here, but the fact that you ended up accepting the PR code shows that the review code, to me, shows that this wasn't so much about taking a stand and as much as just trying to put Bethesda on blast because you felt slighted. That's my take. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what this feels like to me. All right, let's go ahead and move on to this last bit of nonsense here dealing with Starfield. And once again, the game isn't even out yet. We don't even have the reviews out. Reviews come out Thursday, the 31st, I believe. Thursday, a few hours before the game starts going live for the early access people. For this one, we go to WCCF Tech. Starfield's Planetary expedition isn't fully seamless. Evidence of invisible wall leaks is the headline. Dear God. Is this just... This is one of those things where both sides of the stance have valid points to make, but only the most extremely stupid takes rise to the top. So it sounds like everyone's nuts. Let's go ahead and move on to the article itself here. Bethesda has implied that you'll be able to fully explore Starfield's procedurally generated planets once you land on one, summoning up images of players being able to set off toward the horizon and continue walking forever. Bethesda head of marketing Pete Hines seemed to imply that this was the case. Unfortunately, it isn't quite true. While specifics are still slightly sketchy, there's enough evidence of Starfield footage in the wild to provide a pretty solid picture of how planets actually work. Basically, when you arrive at a new planet, you establish a landing area, and the game generates a large tile or swatch of land around that landing area. A number of leaked images and videos online show players being able to reach the edge of these tiles, at which point they hit an invisible wall and are given a warning telling them they can go no further. You've all seen this before, by the way. You're playing an open world game, you hit the boundary and it says the current's too strong, or there's only death that lies behind here, and it shifts you back. Same thing happens. Seems like players are able to run for about 10 minutes in one direction before they reach the edge of a tile. This person here, by the way, Oliver Darko, if you want to go take a look at this video on Twitter, has them running through a time-lapse straight line from the ship. You can see the top of the nose right there to the end when it finally says, hey, you can't go any further. Moving on. Where was I? Bethesda creator Todd Howard essentially confirmed this is how planets work in Starfield with an interview with IGN earlier this summer. So this was known, but it kind of went underreported, saying that planets are made up of kilometer-sized tiles that kind of get wrapped around the planet. Emphasis on kind of. as it seems that these tiles don't really fit together. In other words, where you could set multiple landing zones on a planet, it doesn't seem like you'll be able to create a cohesive, contiguous map of the planet. One leaker showed evidence of this by setting down on a large landing site in Jemison, home to New Atlantis, one of the major handcrafted settlements in the game. Player sets their landing site now down near New Atlantis, so if the tiles actually connected, you presumably be able to see New Atlantis if you travel to the edge, but that isn't the case. Each landing area is basically its own standalone sandbox. You have two responses to this. One is the Sony fanboy, anti-Xbox, fuck you, Microsoft stance of like, worst game ever, 0 out of 10, Todd Howard fucking lied, No Man's Sky is better than this, I'm getting a refund, etc. And then you have the other side, which is saying, oh, this is totally fine, we weren't lied to, everything's okay, you're just a bunch of bitter assholes on the internet. Admittedly, that part is true. Wah, Starfield's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. I am here to tell both of these sides that none of you fucking know. What we're seeing here are a bunch of out-of-context clips of things that are out in the wild of a game that hasn't even been released yet, even to the people who pre-ordered and got it earlier this Friday. It's not out yet. A game having a sandbox that takes you 10 minutes running in one direction, getting to the end, is not instantly make it a 0 out of 10 game. However, they absolutely did imply at Bethesda that that would not be the case. And they fucking slipped it in very quickly in that Todd Howard interview. But for the longest time, Pete motherfucking Hines was saying you can absolutely walk from one end of the planet to the other and not have a single load time. So, did Bethesda lie? Yes. Does it matter for gameplay? No. It does not. And I'm not speaking about the extreme minorities of people who go through and nitpick every little thing. You guys are cast out on an island on both sides and no one fucking cares. I'm talking to the vast majority of people who are going to play Starfield. They're not going to fucking care. Not in the slightest. Yes, Lord Crush, I absolutely see why they kept the maps to small chunks, and even then, they're not really small chunks. They're sizable. If it takes 10 minutes to walk from the center to the edge of the map, that's a long goddamn time. They are big chunks on there. And we all knew something was up, right? We all knew that something was wrong when they were saying you can walk from pole to pole without any kind of loading and you'll be able to get on your planet and take off. We knew corners had to be cut somewhere. We've all seen video game bullshit long enough to smell it from there, and it turns out we were right. Yes, Bethesda lied, and they should be called out for it. They should be taken to task for it, because we're at the point, I'm going to mute my mic because I'm about to cough. We're at the point where we actively need to be pushing back against these false, grandiose promises of games when you make them 3 or 4 years before it's even out yet. It's hurting your credibility. On the flip side, no. This is not going to ruin a game for nearly everyone out there. Once again, I'm not talking to the small percentile of people who are obsessed with every last detail being perfect. If that's the case, Starfield's not for you. Find something else. I'm sorry you were lied to. Maybe Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a better game for you. Take a look at that. Go back to Fallout 4, or even come back to Starfield in a year and a half from now when it's modded. The point that I am trying to make is that it is okay to both simultaneously look at Bethesda and go, you fucking lied. Don't do that, and we're going to call you out on it. While also looking at these big 10-minute in one direction chunks of map that are being put in place and go, that's still pretty fucking impressive, though. You don't have to be a binary thinker on this topic. And there are so many people who are wrapped up in the console wars, or eternally being angry, or tribalism, or what have you, that just can't fucking look at a game and go, this looks fun. Now, it could still be ass. Admittedly, the reviews haven't dropped. The game isn't out yet. It doesn't come out until Friday. I know that Bethesda and Microsoft say it doesn't launch until, I believe, the 6th, but let's face it, that's the price when it launches this Friday for the early access, and that is its launch date. You don't pay for early access. You get penalized if you don't pay more for it. That's how you need to look at it. Let's take a look at chat here. Yeah, it is fine. Otherwise, you'll have a Star Citizen and just have giant empty landscapes that you're in between points of interest. Yes. If these planets are massive, take a look at any game out there. How can I attack this? If these planets were in fact as without the loading screens on there, and each planet had 5 to 10 POIs, points of interest, that means you would spend unnecessary amounts of time combing every inch of a dead world with nothing to do on it. Remember Mass Effect scanning system? You'd scan Mass Effect 2 and 3 specifically what I'm thinking of, and you would scan around looking for minerals and it would light up. It would just be that over and over and over again, but multiply it by like a factor of 100. And most of the time, you're not getting anything. That's boring. So this serves the dual purpose of getting around a technical limitation, which, hey, once again, they lied. They said it would be seamless. They said you can walk from point A to point B across the planet. You clearly can't. It is okay to call them out on that. But it's also okay to recognize that would be boring as fuck for the vast majority of people out there. Especially with no form of like air travel or like a Mako equivalent. Once again, we go back to Mass Effect where you can ride around in. So it is twofold. It serves a gameplay from what I can see. I don't have the game early. I'm not breaking any DNAs, just from me thinking it through. It serves both a gameplay and a technical reason to do it this way. Now, that doesn't... It's my doorbell going off. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be a good game. I'm referring to specifically this one topic that has caused such idiocy online, where I see people going to reviewers and saying, if you give this a good score, you deserve to lose your jobs. Well, you haven't fucking played it either, bro. We don't know. But it is all right to call Bethesda out on their bullshit, to keep driving this point home, and because people don't seem to get it. It doesn't have to be a perfect 10 masterpiece or a 0 total pile of shit, worst thing since, I don't know, bad game here. Nothing's coming to mind right now because we're in a banger year. But it is all right to take a nuanced approach to this shit. Please, I beg you, do some fucking critical thinking. And if you don't like it, there are so many other games out there right now for you to play. And if you love it, more power to you. But understand that it isn't really what was sold. And after 15 or 20 years of constant bullshit marketing from these publishers, it does start to wear a little thin. We all remember Cyberpunk. Shit, some of us are old enough to remember the Killzone 2 bullshit. It does get thin. It is very easy to be cynical about everything in this industry because they continuously lie. But that does not mean that everything sucks. And I think this year has been exceptional when it comes to quality. And this is someone who was bitching about a lack of releases at the start of this year, where it felt like 2 years went by and we didn't get anything really big and special, and what was coming out was buggy as shit. The past 6 months has completely corrected that. I just hope that momentum continues. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below. Keep it civil, please. I know Starfield is a hot button topic for some people for some fucking reason. I still don't know why on that. Moving on, not everything today is about Starfield. We're going to go to another company that's not Bethesda, but another very established, venerable company, Bioware, and talk about how it's kind of dying before our eyes. Right here, you're seeing is a blog post from Gary McKay. He is the general manager at Bioware, and it says the following. In order to meet the need of our upcoming projects, to continue to hold on to ourselves to the highest standard of quality, and to ensure BioWare can continue to thrive in an industry that is rapidly evolving, we must shift towards a more agile and focused studio. By the way, if you ever see any company talk about how they're shifting to a more agile anything, expect cancellations and layoffs. And this is what this is. As part of this transition, we are eliminating approximately 50 roles at BioWare. This vision balances the current need of the studio, namely ensuring Dragon Age Dreadwolf is an outstanding game, with its future, including the success of the next Mass Effect. By the way, that is the only two things BioWare has to hang its hat on anymore. The last Mass Effect anyone actually ever cared about was Mass Effect 3, and that came out, 2014, I think? Or was that when Dragon Age Inquisition dropped? I think Mass Effect 3 might have been 2012. BioWare's last two major games were Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. It's been at least, I don't want to say at least, but it's been close to a decade since BioWare released anything anyone actually gave a goddamn about. Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been in production hell for many a year at this point. I believe going on close to 5 years since it was announced, maybe even 6 at this point, with no sign of actually coming out anywhere soon, and racked with turmoil, with many high-end people leaving, including two of the big senior writer staff. What you're seeing here is from Eurogamer, talking about how part of its recently publicized cutbacks, BioWare has let go of Lucas Christie-Johnson, who was the lead writer behind Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and the writer of the first 3 Dragon Age games, so someone who knows that lore inside and out, and Mary Kirby, who was the writer of those 3 Dragon Age games. My apologies, I'm reading 2 screens at the same time. So part of the people they let go was someone who's been at BioWare for over 20 years. Both of them had been at BioWare for 20 years, but one of them who worked on Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which is kind of ironic considering how fucking well Baldur's Gate 3 is doing right now, and you let that man go. And then you whacked someone who was writing for your studio for over 20 years, who was influential in the first 3 Dragon Age games. This is not a good look for your survival as a studio there, BioWare. What this reeks of is cost cutting at the point where you have to eliminate the higher salaried people, aka the ones that have been there longest and know what they're doing. And it feels like you're going to probably be replacing with a bunch of very, I don't want to say untalented, but let's just say amateur people who you don't have to pay nearly as much. Not necessarily a good thing. Hey there, Dry. How you doing? Yeah, BioWare is absolutely dying out. They've been terrible for a while now. That's what Dry in chat is saying. I agree. Everyone who made BioWare special isn't there anymore. Or almost everyone who made BioWare special isn't there anymore. And especially after this. And if you think that this means that Dreadwolf's going to come out anytime soon now, BioWare is on track, well, got some bad news for you via Video Game Chronicle here. Dragon Age Dreadwolf keeps getting delayed internally, a report claims. This is from Video Game Chronicle here, but by way of Jeff Grubb and his Giant Bomb podcast. That's according to Giant Bomb reporter Jeff Grubb, who said on Thursday that he discussed behind the scenes going off EA Studio with an unnamed source, following the news that BioWare is making a new round of layoffs. Grubb sources claim that Dragon Age Dreadwolf was once being considered for release in September of 2023, only a few weeks away, but that game keeps getting delayed internally. The game's target release window was then moved to March 2024 a while ago, but is now currently planned to come out next summer at the earliest. However, Grubb thinks it's also very likely the game release will get pushed back even further, probably to late next year, but possibly to early 2025. That would bring it up to be, I believe, over a decade since the last Dragon Age, and means over a decade since Bioware made of anything of relevance. Anthem, Mass Effect, Andromeda both being commercial flops. Dragon Age Inquisition more or less being the last Bioware game to actually have any kind of success. I am shocked that EA just hasn't axed Bioware yet. And the only reason why I think they haven't is because EA had that reputation of just buying up studios and then closing them nonstop. Westwood, Maxis, Pandemic, the list goes on and on and on. And I think that while it's been a while since they've done that, that specter still looms large over their head. Plus, Dragon Age and Mass Effect were loved. I say were loved because, once again, it's been about a decade since we've seen from either one of those games. 10 years. That is a major chunk of time. I don't even think the original Mass Effect trilogy took 10 years to launch. I think it took like 6 between the release of the first game and the release of the third game. I could be wrong on that. Please let me know if I am. BioWare is not BioWare anymore. It is whatever is there wearing the skin suit of a once venerable studio who made some of the greatest hits of all time. And it is especially ironic to see Baldur's Gate 3 just rocking it as well as it is right now, while BioWare can't even get a fucking game out the door anymore. I think it might be time for all of us to recognize that we don't need a new Dragon Age game. I would love to see the story perhaps come to a conclusion. Dragon Age Inquisition ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but I think we need to move past it. I think we need to move past Mass Effect. I don't think we need another Mass Effect game, especially after how Andromeda tried to reboot the franchise and was so derided that they're actually going back to the original universe, and it sounds like they might be at speculation. That's probably not going to get into that, so never mind. We need to have a serious talk about whether or not BioWare needs to exist anymore. And it is okay. It is okay for the studio to go off on that good night, or at least call it something else. Change its name, because it's not the BioWare of old anymore. All they are doing is tarnishing that studio's legacy at this point. And it's not necessarily everyone at BioWare's fault either. EA has a big chunk of blame to share in this. They should have cleared house years ago. They should have came in and said, no, this BioWare magic shit, you've proven that don't work. And I know, I'm not trying to defend EA here either. The reason why Baldur's Gate 3 is doing so well, but BioWare can't fucking produce a game anymore to save its life, is because BioWare is part of EA and Larian is its own studio. They don't have shareholders to answer to. They don't have a massive corporate structure to go through. Larian is far more nimble in the good way this time, not in the agile, we're going to fire some people off to become a little bit leaner sense that BioWare is doing right now. But they can actually take risks. They can delay the game as long as they need to. They don't need to hit milestone goals. Not to shareholders anyways. They have internal milestones, of course. We just all need to realize it doesn't matter how good, it doesn't matter when Dragon Age Dreadwolf or the next Mass Effect comes out. Because those games aren't made by BioWare. Not the BioWare that you love, not the BioWare that I love. The people that made Mass Effect, the people that made Dragon Age, by and large have moved on. It's an entirely different studio essentially making them now. So we just need to accept that. It is what it is. Let's see. Let's take back a look at chat here. Let's take another look at chat here. Drya saying BioWare needs to go back to CRPGs. Sadly, EA won't let them. I would love to see something along the lines of that first Dragon Age from BioWare again. Hell, copy Larian. They've clearly shown that there's an interest in people doing these again with how well Baldur's Gate 3 has been doing. I would love to see to kind of get back on that old track again. However, last we heard of Dreadwolf, it's going in the opposite direction. There was rumors that it was kind of trying to do a God of War style combat system to it. No. God, no. Please, for the love of God, no. I like God of War just fine. We have God of War at home. It's called God of War. I don't need Dragon Age to be God of War. All right. I have one final thing I want to mention on real quick. This is just a little upcoming event. Nintendo of America announcing that the in-depth look at Mario's latest 2D side-scrolling adventure will be live streamed Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's going to be roughly about 15 minutes. So if you're looking forward to hearing something about Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which I am hard-pressed to find a Mario game that I don't love. And this isn't new Super Mario Bros. 3D or anything like that. It's an honest-to-God, brand new 2D Mario game. Couldn't be more excited for it. Yes, it's not Mario Odyssey 2. I would love to see Super Mario Odyssey 2. They won't call it Super Mario Odyssey 2. It'll be called something else entirely different. And it'll probably release on side with whatever the next Switch is, which my gut tells me will probably be sometime next year. But in the meantime, looking forward to this. We'll have some more details on it for you next week. And with that, that brings us to the end of the news and thus the end of the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 364, and thank you all for showing up. I stream this live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so feel free to come on by and join the conversation. Can't watch us live? You can catch us over at YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, whatever video hosting platform you prefer. Regardless of where you watch at, however, and if you like the show and you want to support it, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follows, subs, shares, all that good stuff. You can follow me on X at CapitalistPig21. There's a Discord you can join. Link provided down below, along with all the stories that we talk about today. Please read them for yourselves. I'm just some guy who looks at it real quick and regurgitates it back with my own opinion on there. You might see something that I don't. You might come to your own opinions. I wish to know what they are down below. Just try to keep it civil. I'm also here throughout the week as well, randomly streaming things, so come on by and take a look at that too. Until then, though, this has been GamePoints. I'm out of here.